Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Workers.com, Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. I'm Shelby, and I spend my days working directly with job seekers and employers across manufacturing, logistics, warehousing, skilled trades, and light industrial staffing. One thing I've learned over the years is that the best hiring solution isn't always finding someone new. Sometimes the strongest candidate is someone who's already proven themselves.
And I'm Jennifer. My role gives me the opportunity to work closely with employers on workforce planning, retention strategies, compliance, and long-term staffing solutions. One topic that's becoming more important as labor markets continue to evolve is employee rehiring. More organizations are realizing they already have a valuable talent pool they've barely tapped into.
Today's conversation is called Employee Rehiring Strategies, how Boomerang hires help employers fill skilled and hourly jobs faster.
When people hear the phrase Boomerang employee, they sometimes assume it refers to someone who quit unexpectedly and wants their old job back. That's only one small part of the picture.
A Boomerang employee is simply someone who previously worked for an organization and later returns.
Sometimes they left for family reasons, another opportunity, relocation, seasonal work ended. Sometimes business conditions changed. Years later, both sides have grown, circumstances are different, and a second employment relationship makes sense.
The interesting part is how many employers overlook this opportunity while spending significant time and money recruiting people they've never met.
Let's think about what happens during a typical hiring process. A company advertises a position. Applications begin arriving. Recruiters review resumes. Phone interviews are scheduled. Managers conduct interviews. Background checks begin. References are verified. Offer letters are prepared. New hire paperwork starts. Orientation is scheduled. Training begins. Only then does the company find out whether the new employee is truly a good fit.
Compare that to someone who worked successfully for the organization before.
Many questions have already been answered. How did they perform? Were they dependable? Did they work safely? How did they interact with supervisors? Did they work well with teammates? How quickly did they learn? Did customers respect them? Those aren't interview guesses anymore. They're historical facts.
That's one of the biggest advantages. Instead of predicting future performance based on an interview, you're reviewing actual performance,
which lowers hiring risk. Not every returning employee should be rehired. We'll spend time talking about that today. But if someone left in good standing, maintained a positive work record, and gained additional experience elsewhere, they often become an even stronger employee than when they first joined.
Let's start with warehousing. Imagine a regional distribution center entering peak shipping season. Holiday demand is approaching. Customer orders increase dramatically. Management knows they'll need another 40 warehouse associates within 6 weeks.
Normally, recruiting begins from scratch. Ads go live. Recruiters screen hundreds of applicants. Interview schedules become packed. Orientation groups grow larger. Managers spend weeks training new employees.
Now imagine the company maintained relationships with former warehouse associates who previously performed well.
The recruiter already knows who consistently exceeded productivity goals, who maintained excellent attendance, who earned forklift certifications, who worked safely, who became dependable team members.
Instead of introducing the company to complete strangers, recruiters are reconnecting with familiar professionals.
Hiring moves faster because much of the evaluation has already happened.
That doesn't eliminate hiring procedures. Policies still matter. Background checks might need updating. Drug screening requirements still apply. Safety training still needs refreshing. Employment eligibility still requires verification.
Compliance never disappears. The process simply becomes more efficient because everyone starts with a stronger understanding of each other.
Food production offers another great example. Many facilities experience predictable seasonal demand.
Fresh produce, holiday products, packaging increases. Special production runs, agricultural cycles. Every year, staffing needs change.
Some seasonal employees return without anyone formally inviting them.
That's true. Imagine how much stronger those return rates become when employers actively stay connected throughout the year.
Instead of hoping former employees remember them, the company reaches out first.
A simple message might say, "We enjoyed working with you during last year's production season. We're preparing for another busy period and wanted to see if you'd be interested in returning."
That outreach feels different than a generic job advertisement.
It communicates something important. We remember your contribution. People appreciate being remembered,
especially when they left on good terms.
One mistake organizations make is assuming former employees aren't interested anymore. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it isn't. Life changes, schedules change, commutes change, childcare situations change, career priorities change.
Someone who wasn't available 18 months ago may be actively searching today.
The opportunity simply has to be presented.
Let's move into manufacturing because this industry benefits tremendously from employee familiarity.
Manufacturing environments often involve specialized equipment, quality standards, production procedures, safety protocols, maintenance coordination, documentation requirements.
Training someone from the ground up takes time.
A returning machine operator often remembers much of the workflow. Refresher training still matters. Processes evolve, equipment changes, safety updates occur, but the learning curve is usually much shorter.
Supervisors notice that.
One manufacturing manager shared something interesting with us. He said new employees often spend their first several weeks learning where everything is. Returning employees begin asking production questions almost immediately because they already understand the facility.
That accelerates productivity.
And productivity matters when customer deadlines are approaching.
Retail distribution centers experience similar advantages.
They do. Large fulfillment operations depend on efficiency. Receiving, picking, packing, shipping, returns, inventory accuracy, equipment movement, team coordination.
Returning employees frequently remember warehouse layouts, operating rhythms, and workflow expectations.
Even if inventory systems have changed, they're not learning every aspect from the beginning.
Jennifer, here's something recruiters hear fairly often. Managers say, "I wish we had more candidates like some of the employees we had 2 years ago."
My response is usually, "Have you contacted them?"
Many times. Silence follows.
Because the company never developed a structured alumni recruiting strategy, former employees leave. Contact information becomes outdated. Relationships disappear. Years later, everyone wonders where the good people went.
The answer might still be sitting in your historical employee records,
provided those records are maintained appropriately and outreach follows company policies.
Today's conversation is all about building systems instead of relying on luck.
Because successful rehiring programs don't happen accidentally. They're planned, organized, and measured, and they're continually improved.
One question I hear from employers is, where do we begin? The answer is simpler than many people expect. Start by identifying who should be eligible for rehire. Not every former employee belongs in a future recruiting campaign.
That's an important distinction. A Boomerang hiring program isn't about calling everyone who ever worked for your organization. It's about identifying people who demonstrated reliability, professionalism, and safe work habits. The first step is creating clear rehire criteria. Ask questions like, did the employee leave voluntarily? Were they in good standing? Did they consistently follow safety procedures, maintain acceptable attendance, meet productivity expectations, work well with supervisors and coworkers? Were there any policy violations that would make rehiring inappropriate?
Having those standards documented helps everyone make consistent decisions. Recruiters and hiring managers know who qualifies. HR has a framework to support those decisions.
Consistency also helps avoid confusion later. If every manager has a different opinion about who is eligible, the program quickly loses credibility.
I've also seen employers benefit from assigning simple rehire categories. For example, eligible for immediate rehire or after additional review. Not eligible for rehire.
Those categories don't replace conversations. They simply provide structure. A recruiter immediately knows whether someone should move forward, whether additional management input is needed, or whether company policy prevents further consideration.
Once those guidelines are established, the next challenge becomes maintaining relationships. This is where many organizations lose momentum.
An employee finishes an assignment. They receive their final paycheck. The employment relationship ends. Then nothing happens. Months pass. Years pass. Eventually, the company has another opening, but they've lost contact with someone who already proved they could do the job well.
Instead of viewing employment as one completed transaction, think of it as an ongoing professional relationship.
That mindset changes everything. You aren't only recruiting today's employees, you're maintaining relationships with tomorrow's workforce.
Let's use a warehouse example. Suppose a forklift operator worked for your distribution center for 3 years. Excellent attendance, strong productivity, no safety incidents, positive supervisor evaluations. Eventually, the employee relocates closer to family.
2 years later, they move back into your hiring area. If you've maintained occasional communication, you're one of the first organizations they'll think about when they begin looking for work.
If you disappeared completely after they left, someone else gets the opportunity first.
Maintaining contact doesn't require constant messaging. Nobody wants weekly recruiting emails forever.
Instead, communication should be meaningful. A quarterly update, an announcement about expansion, a new facility opening, certification and career advancement opportunities, seasonal hiring announcements.
The goal isn't frequent communication. The goal is staying professionally connected.
This also applies to food production. Many facilities rely on seasonal employees who return every year.
The difference between a structured program and an informal one is planning.
A structured employer already knows when demand increases.
They know approximately how many employees they'll need and which former workers performed well. So outreach begins weeks or months before production ramps up.
Instead of scrambling to hire after production increases, recruiting is already underway.
That's workforce planning. You're solving tomorrow's staffing challenge before it becomes today's emergency.
Manufacturing organizations benefit from this approach too. Imagine an experienced CNC machine operator who left to pursue additional education. 3 years later, they've gained programming experience, quality inspection knowledge, and exposure to newer manufacturing technologies.
That person isn't simply returning. They're bringing additional value back with them.
Sometimes employers worry a returning employee will expect a higher wage.
That conversation should happen openly. Returning employees often have additional skills, certifications, and responsibilities from previous positions. Their compensation discussion should reflect their current qualifications, not only their historical pay rate.
At the same time, transparency matters. Explain the position, compensation range, available benefits, and advancement opportunities.
When expectations are clear from the beginning, everyone makes informed decisions.
One misconception I hear is that returning employees don't need onboarding.
They absolutely do. The onboarding process simply looks different.
Instead of assuming they remember everything, treat onboarding as a refresher.
Review updated safety procedures and policy changes. Discuss new technology. Introduce new supervisors. Explain organizational changes. Confirm emergency procedures. Review current production goals.
Even if someone worked there 2 years ago, the organization has probably changed.
New equipment may have been installed. Leadership may have changed. Software may be different. Customers may have different requirements. Safety regulations may have been updated.
The returning employee shouldn't feel embarrassed about asking questions.
And managers shouldn't assume previous experience replaces current training. Refresher training protects everyone.
Let's shift to retail distribution. Large fulfillment centers often experience rapid operational changes. Automation expands. Warehouse management systems evolve. Picking technology improves. Inventory processes become more sophisticated.
Returning employees often adapt faster because they already understand the operations foundation. Instead of learning everything from the beginning, they're building on previous experience.
That's a significant advantage during peak hiring periods.
Another overlooked opportunity involves temporary employees. Many staffing assignments conclude because projects end, not because performance issues existed.
That's an important distinction. A project finishes. A customer order is complete. Production returns to normal. The assignment naturally comes to an end.
Those employees shouldn't disappear from your recruiting strategy. They're already familiar with your organization. They understand expectations. Many would gladly return when another project begins.
Some of our strongest long-term placements started as employees who came back for a second assignment.
And each return strengthened their familiarity with the client. Eventually, they became lead employees, trainers, permanent hires, supervisors.
Jennifer, let's talk about recruiter outreach. Sometimes people overcomplicate this.
They do. The first conversation doesn't need to sound like a sales presentation.
Something as straightforward as, "Hi, this is Shelby from Workers.com. We worked together during your warehouse assignment last year. A new opportunity has opened that matches your previous experience, and I wanted to see how you're doing and whether you'd be interested in hearing more."
That's personal. It's respectful. And it reminds the former employee that someone remembered their contribution.
Even if they decline today, you've reopened the relationship.
Which means the next opportunity begins from familiarity instead of a cold introduction.
There's another benefit many employers don't immediately recognize. Returning employees often become ambassadors.
They tell friends, former coworkers, family members, professional contacts. People trust recommendations from individuals they've worked alongside.
A positive rehire experience often creates additional recruiting opportunities without increasing advertising costs.
That's one reason successful alumni recruiting programs continue growing over time. Each positive experience strengthens the next round of recruiting.
Instead of rebuilding your workforce every hiring cycle, you're expanding a community of proven professionals who already know your organization and who already understand what success looks like.
One area we haven't talked about yet is why employees leave in the first place. Understanding that answer makes every Boomerang hiring program stronger.
That's a great point. Too many organizations treat every resignation the same way. Someone submits notice, equipment is returned, final paperwork is completed, the employee leaves, end of story. Instead, employers should view every departure as valuable information.
Ask respectful questions. What influenced your decision? Was it scheduling, commute, compensation, career advancement? family responsibilities, school, relocation, temporary life circumstances.
Those answers matter because many of those reasons aren't permanent.
Someone who left because of a long commute may relocate closer later. Someone who returned to school eventually graduates. Someone who cared for a family member may become available again. Someone who accepted another opportunity may gain new skills before looking for their next position.
The reason someone left often tells you whether they could become a strong rehire candidate later.
That's why thoughtful exit interviews are so valuable. They aren't about convincing someone to stay. They're about understanding the complete picture.
Let's look at a manufacturing example. An experienced maintenance technician resigns because another employer offers exposure to automated production equipment. The current employer simply wishes them well and moves on.
3 years later, that technician has learned robotics, predictive maintenance systems, programmable controls, and preventive maintenance software. Now imagine bringing that person back.
You're not rehiring the same employee. You're hiring someone with additional knowledge that benefits your operation.
That experience may improve maintenance procedures, reduce downtime, support newer equipment, help train other technicians, strengthen preventive maintenance programs.
That's one reason returning employees sometimes become future leaders.
They understand the organization from the inside, then they gain outside experience. When they return, they often combine both perspectives.
Let's shift to warehousing. Suppose a warehouse associate accepted another position because they wanted first shift instead of overnight work. The employer didn't have that schedule available at the time.
18 months later, the operation expands. First shift openings become available. If no one reaches back out, the opportunity disappears.
If the recruiter remembers why the employee left, the conversation changes.
Instead of saying, "We have an opening," the recruiter says, "I remember scheduling was important when we spoke before. We now have first shift positions available. I thought of you because your previous attendance and performance were outstanding."
That feels personal.
Because it is. You're demonstrating that someone paid attention.
People appreciate being remembered for positive reasons.
That also reinforces the employer's reputation. Former employees begin viewing the organization as one that values long-term relationships instead of one-time transactions.
Let's talk about communication records. Recruiters often have notes from previous assignments.
Those notes become valuable, not private opinions. Not assumptions, professional observations, certifications, skills, equipment operated, supervisor feedback, performance milestones, career interests.
For example, certified forklift operator, cross-trained in receiving, interested in inventory control, looking for advancement, available for overtime, interested in permanent employment.
When a new opportunity appears, recruiters aren't starting with a blank page. They're building from existing knowledge.
Food production operations also benefit from maintaining accurate employee histories.
Suppose someone worked several successful harvest seasons. Each year they maintained outstanding attendance, completed food safety training, followed sanitation procedures, worked efficiently during peak production.
Those employees become valuable seasonal resources.
Instead of rebuilding seasonal teams every year, the organization begins with experienced returning workers, then fills remaining openings with new employees.
That creates balance. Experienced employees help new employees,
which shortens learning curves, supports quality, improves productivity, strengthens safety culture.
Jennifer, let's discuss something managers sometimes overlook. Returning employees influence morale.
They often do. When respected former coworkers return, existing employees already know them. There's familiarity. Trust develops more quickly. Conversations begin naturally. Collaboration starts sooner.
Instead of feeling like strangers, they already share common experiences.
That social connection often reduces the adjustment period.
There's another practical advantage. Returning employees frequently know where to find answers.
That's true. They remember who handles maintenance requests, who oversees scheduling, how inventory moves through the building, where supplies are located, how departments work together.
Those small details save time every day.
And they reduce frustration during those first weeks back.
Now let's look at something from the recruiter's perspective. Sometimes hiring managers become focused on external recruiting,
Posting advertisements, reviewing hundreds of applications, scheduling interview after interview.
Meanwhile, dozens of former high-performing employees haven't received a single phone call.
One question I encourage hiring managers to ask before approving additional recruiting expenses is, have we contacted our previous top performers?
If the answer is no, you've probably overlooked one of your strongest recruiting channels.
Especially in today's labor market. Experienced workers remain in demand. Building relationships costs far less than rebuilding them later.
Let's discuss another real-world example. A retail distribution company experiences rapid growth after securing a major customer contract. Production forecasts increase by 30%. Management needs additional warehouse associates, equipment operators, and shipping personnel within 60 days.
The traditional response would be launching a large recruiting campaign. Multiple job boards, advertising, hiring events, social media, referral bonuses.
Those strategies still have value, but imagine beginning with former employees who already demonstrated success.
Suppose the company identifies 50 former employees who left in good standing over the previous 4 years. 25 express interest, 15 complete updated hiring requirements, 10 return within the first month.
That's 10 experienced employees who begin contributing much faster than brand new hires.
Now compare the cost. Lower advertising expenses, fewer interviews, reduced orientation time, less basic training, faster productivity, lower supervisory demands during onboarding.
Those savings add up quickly.
They also reduce operational disruption. Supervisors spend more time leading production and less time correcting avoidable mistakes.
There's another factor many organizations don't measure. Confidence.
Managers feel more confident assigning responsibilities to people whose work they've already seen.
Returning employees also feel more confident because they know what to expect.
That confidence helps reduce uncertainty during the transition back into the workplace.
Let's shift to the job seeker's perspective for a moment.
Some former employees hesitate to reach back out because they assume the answer will be no. In reality, many employers appreciate hearing from former employees who left professionally and maintained a positive reputation.
If you're considering returning to a previous employer, begin with honesty. Explain why you left. Share what you've learned. Describe new skills you've developed. Talk about certifications you've earned. Show how you've grown professionally.
Focus on the future. Employers aren't looking for perfect career histories. They're looking for dependable professionals who contribute to the organization today. A thoughtful conversation often opens doors that both sides assumed were closed.
And that's one of the biggest lessons from today's discussion. Strong employment relationships don't always end when someone leaves. Sometimes they simply pause until the timing is right for both the employer and the employee.
As we wrap up today's conversation, let's focus on something every employer should be asking. How do you know whether your Boomerang hiring strategy is working?
That's where measurement becomes important. A rehiring program isn't successful simply because former employees come back. It's successful when those returning employees improve business outcomes.
Start with time to fill. Compare how long it takes to hire a qualified returning employee versus recruiting someone entirely new. Many employers find that Boomerang hires move through the process much faster because several steps have already been completed during previous employment.
Another useful metric is time to productivity. How long does it take before a returning employee performs independently? Compare that with a first-time employee entering the same position.
In warehousing, that difference might be measured by picking and shipping accuracy, inventory counts, or equipment productivity.
In manufacturing, it might be production output, quality scores, setup times, or equipment efficiency.
Food production facilities might look at sanitation compliance, production consistency, packaging accuracy, and waste reduction.
Retail distribution centers often monitor receiving speed, order fulfillment rates, shipping accuracy, and customer service levels.
Those operational measurements provide much better insight than simply counting hires.
Retention is another major indicator. Ask yourself, how many returning employees remain after 90 days? 6 months? 1 year?
Compare those numbers with first-time hires. Many organizations discover their returning employees remain longer because they already understood the work environment before accepting the position.
There are fewer surprises. They know the schedule, understand production expectations. They're familiar with leadership styles. They've already experienced the pace of the operation.
That familiarity often leads to better long-term decisions for both the employer and the employee.
Another measurement worth tracking is training investment.
Every hour a supervisor spends introducing basic procedures represents an investment. If returning employees require fewer introductory training hours while still meeting quality and safety expectations, that creates measurable operational value.
It also allows experienced supervisors to spend more time coaching employees instead of repeating the same introductory information over and over.
Recruiting costs deserve attention too. Advertising, job boards, career fairs, recruiter hours, interview scheduling, background screening administration, orientation preparation. Every one of those activities carries a cost.
When qualified former employees return through a structured alumni recruiting program, many of those costs decrease.
Not because standards become lower, because recruiting becomes more targeted.
Let's talk about quality of hire. That's one of my favorite workforce measurements because it looks beyond filling an opening.
Quality of hire asks questions like, does the employee perform well? Do they maintain attendance and work safely? Do supervisors trust their work? Do they support their coworkers? Do customers receive better service?
Those outcomes matter far more than simply saying a position has been filled.
A position filled with the wrong employee creates another vacancy later.
A position filled with the right employee strengthens the operation.
That's the difference.
Let's bring this together with one final real-world example. Imagine a food production company preparing for its busiest season. Production forecasts increase by 40%. Orders are already committed. Customer delivery schedules cannot slip. Management estimates they need 70 additional employees.
Instead of beginning with 70 unknown candidates, the recruiting team reviews several years of employment records. They identify former employees who left in good standing. They verify current contact information. They review previous performance records. They prioritize experienced workers with strong attendance, excellent safety records, and positive supervisor evaluations.
The outreach begins months before production increases. Some former employees aren't available. Some have relocated. Some have moved into different careers.
Others are interested. Very interested. They remember positive experiences. They know the supervisors. They understand production expectations. They already recognize many coworkers.
Several weeks later, experienced employees begin returning.
New employee orientation still takes place. Updated food safety procedures are reviewed. Current production methods are explained. Any new equipment receives hands-on training. Compliance requirements are completed.
Because the foundation already exists, those employees begin contributing much sooner.
At the same time, newly hired employees benefit from working alongside experienced returning employees. Questions are answered faster. Best practices spread naturally. Positive work habits become more visible.
Supervisors spend less time solving preventable problems and more time supporting production.
Quality remains consistent. Customer orders stay on schedule. Safety standards remain strong. Over time, pressures become more manageable.
That's what workforce stability looks like.
Now let's spend a few minutes speaking directly to job seekers. If you're considering returning to a previous employer, preparation matters.
Start by being honest with yourself. Ask why you're interested in returning. Is it the culture, the stability, the opportunity for advancement, the leadership, the schedule?
Once you understand your own reasons, prepare to communicate them professionally. Hiring managers appreciate thoughtful conversations.
Reach out respectfully. Reconnect with a previous supervisor, recruiter, or staffing representative if appropriate. Keep your message positive. Focus on what you've learned since leaving.
Share any new certifications. Talk about additional responsibilities. Mention equipment you've learned to operate. Discuss leadership experience you've gained. Show how you've continued developing professionally.
Avoid criticizing your previous employer or your current employer.
Professionalism always leaves a stronger impression than frustration. Be prepared to discuss compensation openly. If your experience has grown, explain why. Support your expectations with the value you bring to the position today.
Also remember that the employer is evaluating more than technical skills. They're looking at communication, professionalism, reliability, attitude, readiness to contribute.
Returning with maturity, preparation, and a positive mindset often creates a strong first impression, even if you've worked there before.
Jennifer, one thing stands out to me after today's discussion. Many organizations spend enormous effort searching for talent while overlooking people who already demonstrated they could succeed.
That's one of the biggest opportunities available today, Shelby. A well-managed Boomerang hiring strategy doesn't replace traditional recruiting. It strengthens it, creates another reliable source of talent, supports workforce planning, reduces unnecessary hiring risk, and it helps organizations respond more quickly when business demands change.
For employers in warehousing, retail distribution, food production, manufacturing, and other skilled and hourly industries, maintaining relationships with outstanding former employees is one of the most practical investments you can make.
Relationships built on respect, communication, and professional experiences often continue creating value long after an employee's first assignment ends.
Thank you for spending time with us on this episode of Workers.com Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. We hope today's discussion gave you practical ideas for strengthening your recruiting strategy, improving workforce planning, and looking at former employees through a different lens.
If you're an employer looking for experienced staffing support, workforce planning guidance, or recruiting solutions for skilled trades, manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, food production, retail distribution, construction support, engineering, or light industrial operations, visit our website to learn how Workers.com helps organizations build dependable workforces.
If you're a job seeker searching for your next opportunity, whether you're exploring a new career path or considering returning to a previous employer, visit jobs.workers.com to browse current openings and connect with one of our recruiters.
You'll also find more workforce insights, hiring resources, articles, and every episode of this podcast at workers.com/community.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, follow Workers.com Staffing Pulse on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a review, give the video a thumbs up, and share this episode with colleagues, supervisors, HR professionals, recruiters, and business leaders who are focused on building stronger teams.
Thanks for listening. We look forward to having you with us again for another conversation focused on practical staffing strategies, workforce trends, and solutions that help employers hire smarter and help job seekers build successful careers.